consensus.
That was the last meeting we had.
Yep, okay. All right, I'm going to call the meeting, this first inaugural meeting of the Public Safety Committee to order. And first I want to acknowledge that we're on the traditional territories of the Coast Salish people, in particular the Snuneymuxw First Nation. First of all, I'm going to do an introduction of late items, Ms. Curry.
There are no late items today.
So if I could have the adoption of the agenda as presented. Moved by Councillor Eastmer, seconded by Dr. Scott Brody. Thank you. All those in favor? And if I can have adopt, there are no minutes because it started, so we'll pass that. So first of all, before I start the chair's report, I want to acknowledge that we have Mayor Krogh here and Councillor, oh my God, Hammonds. And I'm going to ask the mayor to give just a little welcome to everybody first before I start the rest of the meeting.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate, I'm not going to be long. I just want to say thank you to all of you for doing this. This is important, and we're going to expect a lot of you, of course. And I trust and hope that you'll be able to provide the kind of assistance and advice that it will help. I just spent the last hour meeting with Connective, which is the new name for the larger John Howard Society, to talk about all the kinds of issues that will relate to the work you're doing here. It is important, it's a topic on everyone's lips, and so I wish you all well. Thank you. I'm going to sit down, keep my mouth shut. I won't stay for the whole meeting, but again, a very sincere thank you for taking this on. It's challenging at times.
Thank you, Your Worship. I appreciate your words. So we're going to do the introduction of committee members. And when you go around, if you give just a little brief bio, and then what I'd like to hear is what you want to accomplish or see this committee accomplish. And then after we go through terms of reference and stuff, we may go back and ask and see if that's changed your opinion. So I will start here with Colin, please.
My name is Colin Middleton. I'm a public safety advocate here in Nanaimo. My professional career, I'm an environmental scientist. And I've joined this committee hopefully to push the envelope a little bit and get the kinds of resources that we need here in Nanaimo to turn the corner of this public safety emergency we're experiencing.
Thank you. Kim?
Kim Coulthard, retired 11 years as a case manager at Fort Worth Safe BC. I also volunteer with Rise Bridge. I also run a program called Shoes for You, where I collect shoes through community donations and hand them out to people in need. What I hope to accomplish pretty much the same as Colin, some collaboration, some agreement on how we can move forward and get beyond these crises that we're experiencing now in our city.
Thank you. Destiny?
My name is Destiny Herman. I live and work in downtown Nanaimo. I work for a nonprofit in mental health and substance use, and I am also hoping to find collaborative and partner relationships so that we can move forward with some of the concerns around the downtown area.
Thank you. Jennifer?
Jennifer Milbank. I'm a lawyer and managing partner at the law firm Ramsey Lavin Rhodes. I mean, we're all here because we're interested in public safety, but I was thinking about, on the way here, I was thinking about why I joined this committee, and I can say for sure what I don't want to accomplish is nothing. So whether we're going to be asking for loads and loads of money, whether we're going to get some talkings to about the boundaries of the jurisdictions that we're working into, I think we just want to put all the options on the table and see where we can go.
Thank you. Scott?
I'm Scott Brody. I'm the chair of the criminology department at Vancouver Island University, and I teach a variety of courses in crim and environmental law a little bit too. Things I'm hoping, I guess harm reduction is big on my agenda, definitely reducing harm, and probably some evidence-led practices is something I'd like to bring to the meetings if I can. Hopefully you can send me off to do research for you because I'm good at that. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Doug?
Doug Cowling. I was born and raised in Nanaimo and was a general practice lawyer in Nanaimo for 17 years and a provincial court judge for 23. My focus is perhaps more on child and youth safety and traffic safety and environmental matters. But obviously I have a background in criminal law, but I would not want to dominate the discussion on that.
Thank you. Ruth?
Hi, I'm Ruth Taylor. I moved to Nanaimo in 2008 and I love Nanaimo. It's awesome. I have 2 children, twins, they're 9 years old. And what else? I'm a citizen of the Métis Nation. I am concerned, like a lot of people. I live in the Old City, South Nanaimo area, and I'm just seeing a lot of changes, as we all have. This is the challenge of our times, and I really don't have a specific agenda about what I want to see, other than I want this committee to be transparent, to have everyone's voice at the table who should be at the table, which I encourage from the terms of reference to see. The scope of what kind of public safety matters, what the scope will be, I think is obviously jurisdictional, but also it speaks to our creativity and our ability to find common ground. What I would like to see is more common ground, more depolarization, and for all of us to have all these many voices, but to find our one mind so we can move forward together. That's what I think.
Lori?
Hi, I'm Councillor Hilary Eastmuir. I am in my first term on City Council. I'm really excited to be part of this committee and grateful to be working with Cheryl on this, Councillor Armstrong. I have lived in Nanaimo over 10 years now. I really love this city, and I want it to be a place where everyone feels safe in their communities, and everyone deserves that. And we have a lot of need in our city, but we also have a lot of really creative, compassionate, and driven people. So we've got a really good group of strong minds around this table, and I think a big part of council's work is to listen to the voices of the community. So I'm grateful for you all being here to help us try to cut through the noise and figure out some proactive solutions. Thank you.
And of course, I'm Cheryl Armstrong, 2.5 terms, RCMP for 36 years previously, so I bring that background. Big believer in restorative justice, which I think is not used well enough in this area, and it's something that I would like to work towards from this group to get their support, because I think a lot of times, especially if we can get youth into restorative justice before they get to the court system, we have a much better chance of turning them around. So these are things I want to bring to the table from my background. It may not always agree with everybody, but I think that's how we get to good solutions by listening to different viewpoints. So very thankful for everybody that put forward. We had so many applicants, and I think we've got a really good breadth of the community here, different aspects, which is important. So I would like to go around very fast just to get staff to introduce themselves, please.
Sheila Gurry, Director of Legislative Services. Hello.
I'm Natalie Sponigal, Communications Advisor at the CAO's office.
And Alyssa Chinakis, Recording Secretary.
Richard?
Richard Harden, General Manager, Community Services. Myself and Mr. LeBerge will be your main contacts for the committee. But as you'll notice and you'll see through, this is definitely an interdepartmental committee, so you'll have everyone access to all the different departments, and you'll see everyone participate in the different meetings.
Thanks, Richard. Dave LeBerge, Director of Public Safety. It's a title that infers everything that you've ever thought about. Crosses my desk along with the fire chief and the police chief, so I'm looking forward to collaborating with you.
Thanks, Tim Doyle, and I'm the fire chief.
Bill Sims, GM, Engineering Public Works.
John Elliott, Director of Public Works.
Thank you all. And Jeremy?
Yes, sir. Yeah, Jeremy Holm, I'm Director of Planning and Development. Nice to meet you.
And then sitting in the back for this, don't know where's Councillor Hammonds, and then of course Mayor Crook. And sorry, sir, but I don't know your name. Are you part of us or just interested?
No, I'm just interested.
Great, thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. Okay, Ms. Gurry, we've done our introductions, presentations. We'll now be committee orientation, meeting procedures to be introduced by Ms. Gurry.
Thank you, Chair. Do I have a phone? How do you say next?
Sorry.
I don't know if it's easier for me to stand here or not, but maybe for the camera and some just housekeeping items. We do have these meetings recorded and live streamed for people at home that want to listen or hear. There is some air conditioning noise above, so we might have to have you speak louder, or you might end up having to pass around a microphone just to see, make sure everybody can be heard, even around the table and at home for viewing. Thanks, Alyssa. So my name is Sheila Gurry, as I already said, and I'm the Director of Legislative Services, or the City Clerk is the old title for my position, and I'm know Mayor Crowe likes that title better. And or the corporate officer is the title referred to in the legislation. So I have many different names for this role, but my basic role here for this committee is to provide legislative advice for meeting procedures. So I'm going to provide an overview of the topics outlined in the slides, in this slide here. But because you have all the material, I'm just going to give a quick overview and hit the highlights. At any time you have questions, feel free to stop me and I'll happily answer your questions. And if you don't think of them now or think of them later, you can always email me or give me a call. So the role of the committee member, first and probably the most important thing to talk about is your role as a committee member. While council is responsible for setting the policy direction for the city, there is so much work to do. They rely heavily on its committee structure to provide guidance and recommendation in a number of areas. Serving on a committee also provides a way for residents to participate in NIMO's decision-making process. Each of you were selected because you have an interest in providing input into city's plans, policies, bylaws, and council is looking forward to your review and recommendations on some of the city's safety initiatives, as well as your own initiatives and ideas that you come up with at this table. Your role is much more than attending meetings. You will be providing key guidance to council on matters related to the city as a whole. So with that responsibility, you need to be aware of what your committee is authorized to do and work with your fellow members to reach consensus. The committee guidelines, which are attached to your agenda, were adopted by council and they're a great resource document to assist you in navigating the terms and conditions for committees. So there are some key responsibilities to being an effective committee member. The first is to ensure you are prepared for the meeting by reading the agendas. We are very lucky at the City of Nanaimo that our council comes to their meetings well prepared and they read their agendas and they know the materials. And that makes the meetings go much more efficiently. And it also assists you with better decision making if you have that background information and you've read the reports that are sometimes attached to your agendas. If you are assigned a task to investigate a certain matter, please complete those tasks because your participation ensures the committee is successful. So we've already had an offer to maybe do some research. So that'll be helpful for the committee, I'm sure. We ask that you contribute to the direction and work of the committee to the best of your ability. And lastly, be familiar with the committee guidelines, which again are attached to your agenda package. So one of the two key bylaws that committees should be familiar with is the council procedure bylaw. Both are included in your package. First I'll go over the council procedure bylaw. It outlines the procedures for both council and committee meetings and includes things such as time and location of meetings, how notice is provided, the order of proceedings for the agenda and minutes, the process for voting, provisions for holding electronic meetings, and debate and decorum. Committee processes follow the same rules as council through the bylaw. However, there are sections that specifically relate to committees that you will find on pages 22 to 24 of the bylaw, which again is in your package. Procedures that are not outlined in the bylaw for both council and committee members would default to Robert's Rules of Order. And I'll talk about that in a moment. So section 43 to 45 in the bylaw outlines the purpose of committees and subcommittees. Committees are formed to consider, report, and make recommendations on matters that have been referred to the committees by council. Throughout the course of your term, as noted previously, you will be asked for input on various city plans, bylaws, policies, initiatives. And at times you will be given presentations by staff, or there will be staff reports with options and recommendations for the committee to debate and consider in the form of motions. If the motions are endorsed, they are then forwarded to council for consideration. This is because committees technically have no authority. Any direction to staff must also be done through council in the form of a resolution. So as a committee, you can make a recommendation for staff to do some work or work on a project and or make a recommendation that council proceed with something, but ultimately that decision is pressed with council at the council meeting. Every committee also has a meeting schedule or a key date calendar, which is based on the terms of reference. And the dates and times for the meeting are developed by myself in consultation with the committee chair and staff liaison. The public safety committees will take place every 2 months, and they are held on Wednesday from 4 to 6. And the draft schedule will be attached to your next agenda for your approval, and then it'll go to council for your recommendation for their approval. So this is me and my team related to meetings and meeting support. So there's a whole other side that deals with records management and claims and freedom of information. But if you have any questions about meetings and or meeting support related to this committee and or anything else that the city does, there's myself, Karen Robertson, Jessica, Callista, Alyssa, who's here today, and Jessica Tonello. So they are available to help support, and one of them will always be here as recording secretary. Today it's Alyssa, so thanks. Alyssa? The meetings will be sent via calendar invites in Outlook, so that is how you will get your invitations, and any cancellations or changes will be sent through Outlook as well. If you're unable to attend a meeting, it's really critical to let us know, either by declining the invite or emailing or calling us. And this helps to ensure that there is a quorum, which for this committee is 6 members. If we don't reach that number, the meeting cannot proceed. So it's really important that you let us know if you can't make it. We do have provisions in our procedure bylaw that allow for you to attend remotely via Zoom. And links to that are sent out during when the agendas are sent to you. The basic meeting agendas, they're distributed by 4 p.m. on the Friday before the meeting. In terms of meeting basics, the full agenda process takes approximately 2 weeks. In preparation for the meeting, staff submit items for inclusion to the staff liaison by 11 a.m. 10 days prior. To be short, I'm not going to read all of this. There's lots of different logistics that go into actually preparing your agendas. So for you, the most important thing is if you do have a specific topic that you would like to bring up with the committee, please reach out to one of your committee chairs or the staff liaisons, Richard Harding or Dave Bursch for now. Please reach out to them as soon as possible so it can get on the agenda. It is good practice to refrain from hitting reply to all on emails and or saving your agenda matters for the agenda. So if there's something that you wanted to discuss and you hadn't reached out to the chairs or co-chairs, it's really important that the meeting items are discussed at this table. It's in the legislation that discussions around moving the business of the committee forward that don't happen at this table is an illegal meeting. So hitting reply to all on email discussions is a form of an electronic meeting.
Just have to change the Zoom to a different Zoom one, just so you know.
Okay, no problem.
Sorry.
That's okay, is the live stream still happening or?
Yes.
I'm just gonna add to, if there's something that you think the committee should be aware, send it direct to me and or Hillary and both of us. And then we will deal with it to see, can it go out or should we wait to a next meeting, that type of stuff. Because I know on our accessibility committee, they had some really good information on some upcoming seminars. So we were able to disseminate it through the proper channel so it didn't become an issue, so.
Yes.
If
Me
there's
as
something,
well would be good because I'll know what meetings are upcoming and where to place them as well, so thank you so much, Charlotte.
don't we just love seeing you, eh?
Yes. The beauty of electronics. I can probably just carry on, because, because there's nobody on Zoom to actually.
There will be, but there's not currently.
Okay. So meeting basics continue. So all meetings are open to the public and all open meetings are recorded and live streamed, which I already went through. There may be the odd occasion where there's a need to discuss a matter confidentially. And in those cases, we do have somebody electronically.
Is he a member of the committee?
Yes.
So after you're done, we'll get him to.
Do you want to say hi to them right now?
Welcome, Mr. Lambert. If you could just give us an overview of yourself and what you want to see from the committee, we would greatly appreciate it.
I think he's muted. I think you're muted.
I think you're still muted, Mr. Lambert. Can you hear us, Mr. Lambert?
We're muted.
No,
We're
go
muted.
ahead, sorry.
Okay, Mr. Lambert, welcome. If you could just give us a brief overview of yourself and what you hope to achieve from this committee would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, you bet. Sorry for the technical issues and stuff, everybody. So, yeah, I'd really hope to be there today. With the meeting change, I'm in Ucluelet. Unfortunately, I have to hang out here for a while. So sorry about that. My name is Kevin Lambert. I've lived in Nanaimo for 6 years. I'm a paramedic with BC Emergency Health Services and have been for 29 years as of yesterday, and currently work in a role as a paramedic practice educator all around the island and specifically in Nanaimo as well. So I thought the Public Safety Committee was a nice place to maybe actually be able to volunteer some time instead of just working in public safety and actually experience a city side of things that I don't get exposed to as much being in a provincial service. So I really appreciate how much municipal affairs really mostly affect what you do day to day and all the issues that we have to deal with in Nanaimo, and just try to be part of the solution if I can, and maybe bring a little bit of a different piece of experience to the group.
Great, thank you, and congratulations on 29 years. Excellent.
God, yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Green.
No problem. So yes, all meetings are open to the public and live streamed. If there are times when a meeting needs to be dealt with confidentially, we can go in a closed meeting. But the reasons that we can go in closed are clearly outlined in the community charter, and we must meet one of those sections in order to proceed into a closed meeting. Typically, those items would relate to personnel matters, land matters, or law enforcement matters. So, if the meeting is scheduled to commence at 4, once quorum is reached, the meeting can proceed. If you're participating by Zoom, please ensure your camera is on. This is how we know you are in the meeting. If your camera is off, we cannot see you and therefore cannot see if you're voting, so you will be deemed to have left the meeting. If you're on Zoom and need to excuse yourself for a period of time, please raise your hand to get the attention of the chair and advise that you'll be stepping out. And at this point, you can turn your camera off. And when you come back, simply turn your camera back on. If there are any late items introduced or the agenda needs to be reordered, the agenda will get adopted as amended. And that's at the start when the chair asks if there's any late items. Sorry, I forgot that whole line. Okay. Presentations and delegations. On your agendas, occasionally you'll see presentations and delegations. There is a difference. Presentations can be made by staff or individuals that have been invited by the committee to staff or staff to present on a matter. There is no limit for these individuals, although often topics are between 10 minutes to half an hour. Delegations are members of the public who wish to speak to a matter that is either on the agenda or is relative to the committee's mandate. Delegations for matters pertaining to agenda items get 5 minutes to speak. Those matters that aren't specifically related to an agenda item but relate to the committee are given 5 minutes to speak. Should a delegation appear, committee members are free to ask questions on the delegation but should not enter into a debate with them. And it is also wise not to make motions directly after you have heard from the delegation. It is appropriate to thank the delegation and then seek guidance from committee chair. Often the matter can be referred to a staff or a report. That way any associated implications with making a decision can be explored. So often you want to jump right to a solution and go forward with an idea that a delegation presents, but you often don't know the implications, often financial, which are associated with moving and going with that direction. So it's better safe to have a staff report and know all of those implications before making a motion. Robert's Rules of Order is a combination of formal rules and customs that governs the conduct of meetings
and the purpose is to help facilitate efficient meetings while protecting the rights of its members. So Robert's rules in the local government setting and how they apply to us are actions or directives that can be acted on, can only be done so through motions which are passed by the majority of the committee. This is done by a member introducing a motion or the main motion. There are different forms of motions. There are secondary motions, and we work in a last in, first out method where if a motion gets amended, we vote on the amended motion. If the amended motion passes, you vote on the main motion as amended. And all of this sounds way too complicated for your first committee meeting, but no worries, the chair and or I will be able to help you if any of those items come up on your agenda. So I won't go into great detail about it. It's important to know that recommendations provided to council by its committees are taken very seriously. However, as noted earlier, recommendations are just that, recommendations. Committees don't have decision-making power, so council may agree to support the recommendation, or after discussion and weighing all aspects of each issue, may take a different decision. So just something to be aware of. Some commonly used motions are approve, and this means that the committee agrees to the request, recommendation, or policy, a specific decision is made. Refer, a motion to refer is usually used in order to gain additional information prior to the committee making a final decision. Postpone, this is when a motion is postponed, and that's to stop debate on a matter until further conditions are satisfied. These motions need to have conditions attached to them, i.e. for 2 weeks or until a report is received. We very rarely, if ever, use postpone and will often use defer instead, which is defer to staff for a report back to council or the committee with more information. So again, I'll be here to help through all of these procedural matters should they occur. And tie votes isn't up there, but if there is a vote and it is a tie, there's for example, there's 11 of you on this committee, but one of you is absent, so it's 5-5, 5 in favor, 5 opposed. That motion fails then on a tie. And one other note that isn't in my notes, but in the community charter and in local government, you can't abstain from voting. So if you do not raise your hand in favor and or raise your hand opposed, you're deemed to have been in favor. So it's very important if you are opposed that you do raise your hand opposed, and that is recorded in the minutes. But if you don't raise your hand at all, you're deemed to be in favor. And if you are seriously want to abstain, there's no way unless you were to leave the room, which is not really good governance. You should vote one way or another unless you're in conflict. Yes, Councilor?
I was just gonna ask if you're gonna talk about conflict.
Yes. Yes. Some motion pitfalls to go over really quickly is one wants to avoid negatively worded motions. As outlined in this example, one wouldn't use the word not. Instead, we would use the word denied. Or it could get confusing because the negative motion is defeated. So avoid not so that the TP 1, 2, 3 not be issued, because if it fails, then it's the committee voted not to issue, which makes no sense. Rules of decorum, so not everyone may be in agreement with a motion, and that's why a healthy debate comes into play. There's a place for that at a committee and at this table, and members that have different perspectives or view of the issue is often the case, and that is appreciated. Having said that, it's important that the remarks be confined to the motion, and comments should be courteous at all times and remarks addressed through the chair, even if you might not agree with another member's position. So rather than heated back and forth at each other, you can make your respectful comments of disagreement through the chair and back to the other member. Our minutes, and they are governed by section 51 of our council procedure bylaw. They are action driven through the recommendations and do not include committee debate or items not pertinent to the decision. Having said that, we do put a little bit more detail in committee minutes to provide context, as the meetings are more short sleeve sessions where decisions are formulated. Draft minutes are circulated as soon as possible after the meeting, and they are formally adopted at your next meeting. Once adopted, they are forwarded to council agenda for information. Reporting out, the chair, co-chair are the spokespeople for this committee. Reporting out to the public is through the chair, and formal reporting to council is through the staff liaisons, through a staff report. And the other methods that are reported out is through your minutes of the committee. So the other bylaw that I mentioned, I told you there was 2 bylaws that I was going to go through, is our code of conduct bylaw. And that's the second key bylaw that this committee should be aware of. It came into effect on October 15th, 2022 to coincide with the new council and committee member terms. The code of conduct or policies became mandatory by the provincial government in 2022, and there are 4 parts to the bylaw. Part 1 outlines the scope of the bylaw, which states that it is applicable to both council and committee members. Part 2 outlines the foundational principles for council and committee members to follow. Part 3 outline the behavior expectations connected to those principles and cover off expectations related to interactions with staff, volunteers, committee members, the public, and media. It also outlines how information should be handled and collected, the use of social media, and conflict of interest. Part 4 outlines the accountability provisions and process for bylaw breaches and the complaint process. However, the majority of this section is not applicable to committee members. In cases where a complaint is received about a committee member, section 4.2 would apply, and where complaints would be addressed to the mayor and council, and it would be council that would determine the resolution. The bylaw is also in your agenda package, but if you have any questions at all on any aspect of the bylaw, please don't hesitate to reach out or send me an email. And Karen Robertson, the Deputy Public Officer, which was, she was an integral part of writing this bylaw, and in this time she would be a really good person to speak to as well. So as council members, they swear an oath or affirmation at the time they take office, agreeing that they will abide to the code of conduct bylaw. As committee members, do not swear that oath. Committee members must sign a statement affirming that they will adhere to the bylaw. So we do have copies on hand for those members who have read the bylaw and wish to sign today. And if you need more time, that's totally okay. You can feel free to scan and email a copy to Legislative Services prior to the next meeting. Conflict of interest. So this is the last topic I want to go over, and council staff and committee members are expected to make decisions that benefit the community, that are free from undue influence and not to act or appear to act in order to gain financial benefit for themselves, family, friends, or business interests. So whether you have or any member of your family has a private or personal interest in any topic, you must not do anything to let that interest influence your decisions. If you do feel that you might have a conflict, as outlined in the conflict of interest guidelines policy, which again is attached to your agenda, you should declare that conflict to the committee chair or that potential conflict. A good test is to ask yourself, would a reasonably well-informed individual think there was a conflict? If so, it's probably safer to abstain yourself from the debate and leave the meeting. You would return when the topic has concluded. So just like at a council meeting, you would make a brief declaration as to why you're in conflict. You would leave the room for the discussion and vote, and then we would come and get you. We would come back in and you would believe that any topic would put you in a conflict of interest. It's very rare that this committee would have conflicts. It's mostly committees that deal with land or financial matters. However, you just need to be aware of it nonetheless. Again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me. And I think that's it, unless you have any questions. And again, congratulations on your appointment. I know council's been very eager for this committee, and yeah, as the mayor said as well, just thank you all for signing up and participating.
And on that, if you have questions, I ask you to put up your hand and then I'll acknowledge you and then you will be able to speak. And I will try and keep a running list of the order I see it. So normally we like to take questions at the end, but if it's something important, feel free, or if the speaker says I'm willing to take questions at any time, then I'll be watching for that. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Curry.
Thank you.
So moving on to reports, we have Mr. Hardy, terms of reference.
So I'm gonna read this out again also. It's our terms of reference on page 79 of your package. And even though I know you can all read through it, I just think it's nice as a group gets together, it's kind of good to kind of say, well, what's really pulling you together? And I think the terms of reference going through it is good for a couple of reasons. One, council actually spent a lot of time on this terms of reference. I remember being in some of the meetings of what they wanted this committee to focus on. I think it's good we go through that. And then also just as a group to kind of say, okay, this is what we're supposed to be focusing on. There's just other things we're not supposed to be focusing on. So if you want to follow along with me, and then again, you can stop me on any of these as part of the questions. So page 79, terms of reference, Public Safety Committee. The purpose of the Public Safety Committee, the committee, is to provide a forum for engaged citizens to discuss concerns and propose solutions that would serve to enhance safety and security within the city of Nanaimo. The committee will advise council on strategic and policy initiatives related to the city's provision of public safety programs with the goal of maintaining and enhancing a safe and healthy community. So the committee will discuss and provide recommendations to council related to residential and commercial business safety, public nuisance matters, graffiti and vandalism, vehicular crime, traffic safety, enhancing public safety and security. That's quite broad, so there's quite a broad section there. Fire safety. Review and provide recommendations to council regarding community safety concerns. Receive information from groups and agencies dedicated to community safety, including the RCMP, the Nanaimo Fire Rescue, and the Nanaimo City Bylaw Services. Most of them are here today. Discuss issues related to the committee by council, CAO, GMs, and directors. Work with council to increase public awareness and education on matters related to public safety and security. So that's the overall purpose. Then membership, as you see, there's 11 members. 2 are council members, 9 are at-large citizens like yourself. And then just on the back, eligibility. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I missed one.
You missed a
bullet.
bullet.
Oh, did I?
Yes.
I just did this to see if you're following along.
But
So did I miss support advocacy work?
Yes.
I thought I might have missed that one. I thought Joe used the glasses or not use the glasses. I went without the glasses. But I do like the fact that you did we were following along. So support advocacy work relating to public safety, including integrated enforcement, social responses, and the protection of vulnerable persons. Thank you. That's a pretty important purpose part I missed there. So thank you for that. Anything else on the purpose of the committee?
Seeing no questions.
And then, so then you see the term, the eligibility, how you're here, the meeting, the term, so you're a committee until the end of this council term, which is about 3 years, 3 years and a bit less, or 3 years and, 3 years, right?
Less than 3.
Just less than 3, just less than 3,
2
yes.
3/4.
Meeting frequency, just see, will be every 2 months, but similar to our advisory committee on accessibility and inclusiveness, if our workload increases, and there's a number of issues, we'll add more meetings to that. We've done that with our accessibility and inclusive committee over the last few years. And then staff support, as I mentioned, it's truly an interdepartmental committee. You'll see reports, or you may request some information, and you'll have access to different staff as you see today. And then observers on community support. So again, you might have groups come in that aren't related to the city, but have some background to provide some information. They'll be here, as well as these are open to the public, and so public are allowed to attend. And it's also taped. That's the purpose.
Any further questions? Seeing none, next will be other business, which is future meeting items to be introduced by Mr. LeBear, Director of Public Safety. Hopefully everybody can drop it. This is so. Jeez.
Accessibility issue.
Where's my magnifying glass?
It seems that Mr. Hardy and I collaborated on our presentation notes, because he covered off part of my first couple of slides, so I can jump through this very quickly. I thought it might be helpful, maybe just to have a little bit of history of our past committees, and kind of maybe some of the challenges that we worked through and maybe a few things we can avoid as we fill up with this new group. I think going back to 2004, we had the NIMO Safer Working Group. That wasn't actually a committee of council, although we did have several councillors on it, but it was line managers with the Health Authority and the Business Association and the RCMP, and it was a very action-oriented, very, very productive group. And kind of what rose out of that working group was our first supported housing project in the city. We created 160 units of supported housing that would be in Wesley Street and Uplands and Boundary. And it was a really great concept, but it didn't follow the council committee outline. And so it was in about 2012 that we created a committee very much like what we have today. Richard kind of covered this off. I'm just going to jump to the community charter. Now, with the 2012 committee that went through to 2018, one of the constant stalling points was kind of a mandate creep. And you'll often hear the mayor speaking to a lot of the concerns of public safety that these are the mandates of the provincial and federal government, and he's absolutely correct. And I know this is a very cerebral table, and I don't probably have to explain the constitutional division of powers. But in Canada, we have two recognized levels of government, provincial and federal. And we as the municipal government, we're just a creature of legislature by the provincial government. And any of the authorities that we have and any of the work we do on these things are all authorities that are governed to us through the community charter. And if you look at this slide in front of you, that pretty much highlights the scope of the authorities that we have as a municipality. And what you won't see in here are things like health and criminal law and controlled substances. And that's often where these conversations creep to. And it's not to say that we can't influence a lot of these things because it's so closely tied to the challenges that we're going to be discussing as a committee, but that we have to try to assist the RCMP in determining what their strategic priorities are and what as a municipality we want them to do and to focus on. And as far as what we can work on and is with recommendations to take to council are pretty much the things that are listed in the slide that were reported in the community charter. Let me jump over to this, it's probably for a later date. I just wanted to list a number of the regulatory bylaws that we use in the city. This is not an exhaustive list at all, but as I can anticipate what are a lot of the things we're going to discuss, a lot of the activities that are undertaken enforcement by the fire department and by my departments are all set out and regulated in our bylaws. They say this isn't exhaustive, but the procedures in these bylaws are often very prescriptive, not only on how, but when we can take action, particularly when it relates to people's private property. A good example, and something that probably is going to rise, is vacant buildings. You know, whether they're a visual blight in a neighborhood, or whether they're a fire hazard, or whether they're occupied by trespassers that are in there. It's always a very pressing concern. Our ability to deal with these types of situations is very limited, and that authority would fall under your fire services bylaw. We don't have laws that are aesthetic or looks goods bylaws. Everything that we do is focused around life safety, and so as we have these conversations, I would always urge the committee to go back to our bylaws and do some research just for some better understanding and wholesome conversations on where we can work on some of these problems. So I went back to 2018 to look at the strategic priorities of the committee of the day, and certainly NIMO isn't, the context isn't the same as it was 6 or 7 years ago, but you'll see some similarities to some of the comments made around the table and what they'd like to accomplish. There was a really good cross-section, and I really appreciate that some of the different committee members said that this isn't all about homelessness in downtown and the disorder that goes on there. There are many good, important things that this committee can look at, and going to the bottom, emergency management. This deals with so many important aspects of livability in our community, particularly for our vulnerable populations, and how we provide warming centers and overnight shelters, and during extreme weather, whether it's hot or cold, what type of relief we can provide. These are really significant things that we will really appreciate some community input on. Some of these other things are ever evolving. I talked about policing priorities, but although we as the municipality can't correct the RCMP, we can certainly tell them what their priorities should be in our community. And to that extent, a number of years ago, your council provided the RCMP with 4 additional resources just to focus on downtown, so we can provide them resources, but we can be kind of prescriptive in how we want to see them applied in the city. At the same time that they were developing their strategies, DIU did some community engagement sessions, and you'll see that the lists are very similar to what we see today. And this is what the criminology department found for us. The priorities that everybody was talking about was the downtown core. At the time, the community policing office that was closed the following year. There you see the things that are often in discussion today: drug use, overdoses, lighting, safety, particular drop-in and sheltering amenities, and then a lot of discussion on location-specific challenges. And I can tell the committee that we met with the NIMO Neighborhood Network yesterday, and one thing that they asked to bring to your attention is that they'd like an opportunity to come as a delegation regularly just to check in and tell the committee firsthand what kind of challenges that they are dealing with. Because as we've put different programs in place in downtown, we find that some of the inner city neighborhoods, particularly around the Newcastle neighborhood and the South End, are picking up a lot of the very similar challenges that used to be exclusive to the downtown core. So I think it's very important that you hear the voice of those neighborhood associations. I asked my staff in the past week before this meeting, just kind of give me your top 10, what do you do in all your work, and what do you hear most from the public? And a lot of the things I've already touched on, no surprises here. The number of vacant buildings throughout the community, the blight, the homeless squatting, and the fires that occur is a very paramount concern. Probably number one, and I know this will resonate with a number of people in the committee today, is the proximity of neighborhoods to intensive social services. So where we situate warming centers in the community, overdose prevention sites, even with the best management, the operators of these facilities can only control the activities that occur on their property. They really have little input, even with good neighbor agreements, to control conduct. And when we have concentrations of large number of people in these neighborhoods, it does sometimes come with some profound consequences. And I think there's a very in-depth discussion that this committee would like to have on the challenges that we're having with some of our facilities today. I've talked about public infrastructure, and really what we spent a lot of time with in the last year is our parkade facilities. Downtown is our arts and entertainment center, and when we talk to our hospitality partners, they say all the time that when they get feedback from their guests, that the one challenge in an otherwise perfect holiday is what they deal with when they have to go down to the parkade facilities and deal with people that are sheltering and the challenges of human waste and damage to their vehicles. And it's not just our parkade facilities anymore. I know Mr. Harding and the Parks and Recreation folks the challenges that we have in all of our recreation facilities now, in our swimming pools and people that go there and do predatory behaviors that make not only the public but our staff unsafe. We are working on a bylaw right now to address that, and that's something we'd like to bring to this committee in the weeks ahead. One thing that the city does do, which I touched on earlier, is that we control all the public lands and the park lands. And it's no surprise to anybody that our homeless populations have risen exponentially in recent years. Our most recent point in time count last year enumerated 518 people. But I can tell the committee that in the data recently released by the province that enumerates homeless numbers from all their sources, from income assistance, from their shelter data in 2021, they felt the true number was about 1,000. So homelessness truly is ubiquitous in our community, and this certainly is not a downtown problem. It's everywhere from the very south end of the city up into Lanceville, and I know this is something that the neighborhoods are really looking forward to discussing with this group. The downtown streets and storefronts, I'm going to touch on that with an action plan that we're working on right now, and with the intensity of the unsheltered population we have now, really nobody struggles more than the vulnerable populations that are on our street. And your mayor and council have made significant investments in the last year to fund daytime warming centers and other amenities, shower programs, services and programs that are really the responsibility of the provincial government. But in times of need, the city's really stepped up to support all the citizens in the community. So I want to finish off with one action piece that we'd like to inform the committee and get your feedback on, and that's our Downtown Community Safety Action Plan. I'm sure you're all aware that in 2018 we had what I think is still the largest tent city in the history of the province. And quickly following the encampment, we had the COVID pandemic that led to a reduction of about 75% of the number of people working downtown. And through those two events, our downtown core took on a lot of stigma as a place that was unsafe. And we commissioned a study to develop this plan that was adopted by council in April of 2022. This brought a lot of resources, about $2.5 million in annual investments in a lot of initiatives, and I won't go through them all exhaustively today, but things like the community safety officers and sanitation clean teams, so that when there is disorder, that there's somebody that will respond to calls, whether it's the public, whether it's service providers within 30 minutes, people that can engage with our vulnerable populations to wayfind them, do wellness checks. I can tell you that the CSOs in the last year have administered more than 1,500 units of naloxone and emergency first aid CPR to more than 70 overdose victims. The municipality, through these programs, is providing outreach services in a scale that's not being matched by health or other provincial partners. We're very proud of the program. The question that we're asking now is it sustainable? Is it making downtown safer? And I want to be clear that these resources, they're very expensive and very, very intensive, but they're also downstream resources. What we need to do at the same time is plug the hole that with more people that are falling into addiction and to homelessness. And so we've, last year the Premier and the Solicitor General came to town and offered us some money and asked us to do a community safety and wellness plan, and we said we're appreciative, we've done a lot of plans, and we don't want to go back to the community to ask them how they're feeling. But what we'd like to do is evaluate our progress in our plan and how it's working for downtown, and whether it is making the community safer for everybody, including the vulnerable populations, to see if there's any resourcing gaps in it. So I can tell you I have 12 officers right now that work 20 hours, 18 to 20 hours a day, 7 days a week in responses. Is it properly resourced? And then lastly, can we expand these initiatives citywide? And so we've retained the Deloitte Incorporated to do this work, and we're kind of midstream right now. So if you look up on our screen, we've done our kickoff and our analysis, and we're just finishing engagement. So this committee is coming in at a really important time where we're going to develop a strategic framework, and we're going to have a workshop next week with all of our provincial partners to try to decide what the list of initiatives are for community safety. And this is something we'd really like to report back to this group and get your input on. So with that, I will close off there. This is certainly a very heady and wholesome action item that I hope you'll join us with. And I'll turn it back to the chairs just for a discussion on what other further items you want to consider.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. LaBerge before he leaves the podium? We can always answer them there. Okay, so what I want to do now is, I'll just ask you to put your hands where you want, to give us some ideas of what you would like to see some focus around, or if you have some thoughts on speakers or whatever that you might think might be beneficial.
Is there an opportunity to put forward a motion to invite the Nanaimo Neighborhood Network to give those delegations on a regular basis?
Do you need
Or
a
is
motion for that, or we'll just do the invite?
I think what we might actually do is, you could do a motion, yeah, why not have the first motion and invite them to be a presentation. And that way they don't have a specific time limit, they can present up to 30 minutes, and you as the committee are inviting them here if your motion passes.
So
Yeah, you could do that.
Go ahead.
Well, what David mentioned is that the Nanaimo Neighborhood Network was hoping for a regular delegation. So if we're doing a presentation, that would probably take a lot of time every single meeting, but.
Yes, I would suggest it,
10 minutes?
well, I would suggest that we have them once, and then if the need for them to come again is, you could have the motion, or they could ask to come again, but if it's a standing agenda item, that would be something different that I think that we
Just for clarification to Mr. LaBerge, did they want it to come as a standing to this meeting, or would it be okay to do one presentation, see what they have to say, and then come back? What was your thoughts?
Chair, it was my understanding that they would like to be a regular participant in the process.
Yeah, I can understand that, and I think it's important that we get that information, because they're the ones that are representing the people that have all the concerns or solutions, so.
I would just like have some kind of, like if it's gonna be a standing item, I would support and suggest that it be a 10-minute.
Yeah.
So I'll motion that this committee invite the Nanaimo Neighborhood Network or a delegate to provide a delegation or
Up to 10 minutes.
up to 10 minutes at each public safety committee meeting.
We have a seconder for that? Seconded by Ruth. Any discussion? Not seeing any. I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Seeing none opposed, motion carries. Anything else that you'd like to add, Colin, about what you've heard, or if you've changed your direction or anything?
I think the only other thing was that, as you know, the Nanaimo Area Public Safety Association recently released a report, and I'd like to have that shared with the committee if that's.
What I'll do is I'll ask you to forward that to Ms. Gurry, and she will look at it and then make a determination. Is that okay, Ms. Gurry? That would be the best route to go. Okay, thank you. Kim?
I just have a lot to digest right now as
Okay.
far as what I've learned,
Yeah.
and so I just want to give it some thought.
Perfect, thank you. Destiny?
Yeah, I think it's great if we have the opportunity to give recommendations around warming and cooling centers, because I think we've struggled with that in the past as a community.
Thank you. Jennifer?
If we're looking at focusing on things, probably the two biggest ones for me would be generalized downtown disorder. Although I appreciate that's not the only thing that we can look at, and something else that I think is unrelated, but probably a good thing for the committee to move forward on would be preparing for the next heat dome and making sure that we've got some time, making sure that the infrastructure is in place in order to protect people when that happens, because I think it probably will.
So, Ms. Curry and Mr. Harding, I would suggest that would be a good topic for one of the staff members that is doing the emergency stuff to come forward to give you what the plan is and what we're looking at. We could have that as an upcoming topic.
Sure, we could add that as a presentation.
Yeah, I think that would be,
and update
you know,
our
between our fire department and our city staff, they can tell us which sites we use, how we're operating them, et cetera, so that you have an understanding, and then we could go from there to see this is what's happening. Can we see further stuff, et cetera, so that you know what we're already doing. Thank you. Scott?
Yeah, lots to digest, I think, too. I know there's been a lot of innovative solutions put forward already in the various committees, like the 2018 committee, so I guess I need to get sort of up to speed on some of those things too, and what's already been tried and tested. And then there's a lot of progressive solutions going on across Canada to deal with some of the unsheltered. So I guess I'll come next time with some more stuff to provide for sure. So I guess I'm sort of up in the air right now. Still, at this point.
Do you think it would be beneficial for the committee to know exactly where we're sitting at with the supportive housing, the numbers of people that are there, and the issues that we're hearing back from not only the operators but the neighborhoods?
I do.
Do a housing presentation also.
Yeah. Okay, Ms. Curry, so that'll be a housing presentation as well?
Yeah, I was just actually talking with Natalie Smallable here about all the information that Christy Wood's been putting
Yes.
together for us to have on our website that outlines all of the initiatives and work that we've done, and so I think that would be great to bring to this.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around where we're at and where we should go, and the empirical evidence to help me make decisions.
Yeah, and I think
those
it's
sorts of
important
things.
too, because what has just come out recently is there has been changes to the Heart and Hearth program, which is a new ADP program brought out for where the actual operators are going to be able to do regular wellness checks and also ban visitors.
Sure.
Which could, so I'm waiting to see how that plays out, because that could help us with some of the social disorder around the neighborhoods.
Sure, and
So-
Dave also mentioned some upstream sort of stuff,
Yeah.
and that's interesting stuff to me too, the upstream solutions.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Doug?
Just a question for Ms. Gurry, I guess, that there's the formal part of the meeting with Robert's Rules of Order and everything.
Yes.
Is there an opportunity for the committee just to have sort of an open, off-the-record session? To talk about which directions or what information sharing?
I looked to Councillor Hemmons. Yeah, she's been begging me for this since she started council in 2018. Can we not just go have a beer and talk about things?
Unfortunately, no.
So yeah, unfortunately, no. So the work of the committee, it's transparency, it's local government. Under the community charter, our meetings have to be open to the public. Therefore, we can't meet without the public being able to have the opportunity to know that's happening and to be able to witness and hear your discussion.
So the other things was, it's a little, over the years, I've seen all sorts of different programs, so it's hard to keep track of what's still in place, what's gone. With respect to Lahaina and the wildfires, I see all the electric cars down at the Harbor Commission, and I understand the harbor is not our authority, but when the sawmills used to be there, they had their own fire crews and worked with the fire departments. I imagine there's a barge full of electric cars coming in, and when they get on fire, I don't want our harbor, and there's all sorts of oil tankers down there.
Yeah.
So we think of that again. And the other thing was, we used to have programs, low profile with social workers or RCMP officers in the high schools. And I think that's really important, because the 14 to 18-year-olds are very vulnerable. The gangs try to get in there. And so I don't know if we still have those programs.
Yeah, so we do have the school liaison program, so maybe that might be an interest in another presentation. The school liaison can come forward and tell us what are the issues they're hearing from the kids in the schools. Because, I mean, those are our future, right? So is there something that we could be doing to help support them? Like, because that was one of the recommendations, I chaired the public safety committee back in 2018, 2017. And that was one of the big recommendations, is what is there for youth in this community? And just so you're aware, we did get, I believe it was almost $2 million grant for a youth and gun violence program, which Ms. Woods is doing. So she might be a good person to come as well to present on what the city's doing with youth, as well as the school liaison, because, you know, as you know, Judge, from when you were a judge, we had a lot of issues in our high schools with multiple stabbings weekly and stuff, and the lack of supports they felt. So it might be a good starting point as well to do that. Okay, anything further?
No,
Okay, Ruth?
So I just wanted to ask where the committee is at with any involvement from the Snuneymuxw First Nation, if there was an interest in inviting the Snuneymuxw here, just because we talk about different levels of government, provincial, municipal, and this strategic framework workshop that's happening. I was just wondering if
Snuneymuxw was always included in all of our emails and all of our stuff. Some they choose to come to, others they don't.
I was just wondering about some sort of Venn diagram overlap with the large population of Snuneymuxw members that live off reserve and that are in South Nanaimo, Harewood, you know, that area.
That's something that we're working on, because it's not just them, there's a lot of interurban. So just so you know, Leyland, which is the child, they've now been delegated, I think it was 3 years ago, that they now can deal with off reserve population. So that could be a linkage as well, so. Good point. Okay, I think Colin, you had another question?
Oh, I was just gonna comment on, you know, that having these presentations, I think, are really important for not just the committee, but for the public to see what is going on, because like a lot of the public is in the same boat as a number of members of the committee, where unless you are really focused on trying to understand a particular aspect of these issues, you know, it isn't clear what is being done in the city right now. And having more, some kind of initiative or mechanism to get information about what the city of Nanaimo is doing on a number of these fronts, whether it's the school liaison or youth, to get it out into the press, to get it on social media, so that the wider public is aware of everything that the city of Nanaimo is trying to do.
Councillor Eastburg, do you want to answer stuff?
I just wondered about bringing the Nanaimo Systems Planning Organization in to potentially talk a little bit about the work that they're doing on the health and housing file, just to loop the committee in about the work that they're doing.
Anything else?
No, I think all good ideas.
I have two things, and one is I would like to hear from the vulnerable population as well, because that's a place that we never hear from. Like, we hear from a lot of groups, but we don't actually hear from them. There's a lot of people that lump all of our homeless into the criminal, and there's a lot of them that are not criminals that actually are being victimized constantly. So I think that's something that messaging has to get out to the broader community, that not all homeless people are bad. And I think that's something we have to look at, because there's a lot of that, especially on Facebook, and we know how that stuff grows and so. I think that's something that we need to look at, is what is the vulnerable population feeling, and what can we do to help support them as well. And then my second thing, this goes to Chief Doyle, although I don't know how much you play in, but fire is a concern for me. Like if like a Fort McMurray happens, you know, what are emergency routes? I've talked to a lot of people, they don't have a clue. They don't know where to find them, how do we do it? And that affects everybody. Fire comes in, what are we gonna do? How do we get people out? Where's, you know, safety spots, mustering stations? What happens post-fire? So that might be something we might want to look at too, because most of the wildfire interface fires can end up coming to the city, and for some areas there's one road in and one road out. So it's something that you know, perhaps we could look at a presentation from fire safety on that at a later date.
Cheryl, did you get
Kevin's
that?
on.
Oh, sorry, Kevin. My apologies. I keep forgetting about the Zooms. Go ahead. Let us know. What would you like to say?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, thanks everybody. Not too much. My only thoughts on the first meeting here are two things. Is, you know, I have, you know, I just want to go forward, and I want to put out an invitation to everybody in the committee to call me out on biases that appear, because I have them. We all have biases that show up, and I think it's important that we kind of you need to be open to somebody calling you out on things. I think if those biases are maybe coloring your perspective and taking away from the focus of what the committee is established to do. And the second thing is I guess it's almost I served on a public safety committee in Langley when I lived there, and I think we were a little bit overwhelmed by the breadth of the topics and everything that exists, and we ended up spinning our wheels a lot in the committee, and actually at the end of a year we're sitting there going, man, we didn't do anything. And so I think that if there's some very specific things that we can focus on and bring our some knowledge that we accumulate to bear, that's great. But I don't want to come in and presume to know more than somebody who's been working on a project for 2 years in the city and knows way more about this stuff than we do. So I do think the information gathering, like a few people have mentioned, is very important. And I just want to make sure that we temper our expectations and really focus what we're here to do, if that makes any sense.
Thank you. I agree. I think from my perspective, the first couple meetings will be the information gathering phase, so you know what is going on in the city, what we have, what programs are there, blah, blah, blah. And then we'll start to get into some more meat, because I am solutions oriented. Those that know me, I want to see some solutions. I want to know, I don't want to just sit and meet for the sake of meeting, because I do too much of that as it is. It's really important. We may not all agree, and I think that's good too, because you want diverse opinions. I'm conscious of what you said about bias. But it's also important that you're going to bring a different perspective in based on your lived experiences, as I will, as a police officer, as those that work in the addictions field will. But it doesn't mean any of our opinions are wrong, but it just means if there is one, we need to check ourselves to realize that it's not necessarily the right opinion. So I think that was a very good point. Thank you. Mr. Harding.
The only thing I'll just add to that is that what we did with the advisory committee on inclusiveness was also work towards a work plan, which would help with Kevin was mentioning, was focusing on certain tasks, and so we can help the committee work on that. We also there'll be issues, now that the committee's formed, issues that council will most likely be sending forward directly to the committee as they deal with the business. And there's also programs and projects that are ongoing. Mr. The Bears mentioned about the Deloitte safety plan, but there's a bunch of other plans that are going on that staff will now come and present to you to gain your information, your insight and information from them.
Yeah. Councillor Smith just said one of the big changes that just happened at our last GPC meeting, Governance and Priorities, was we are removing some school zones because they actually don't comply with the law, and we were asked by the Judicial Justice of the Peace to remove them 7 or 8 years ago. We're now finally doing that because they're not enforceable, because the School Act or the Motor Vehicle Act is very precise about where you can have your signs. So that has been happening, and then we're also bringing in bylaws on e-scooters. A lot of people don't want them, but they're here to stay. And you have to have some mechanisms to control where they go, because pedestrians are getting hit. There's lots of issues. Doug?
I've read about the school thing. It would be possible on the existing signs just to put up a little sticker on a slow school zone ahead.
Yes.
Before you get to the legal zone.
Yeah.
Because to say it's illegal doesn't mean you can't put up, as parents do, kids in the
We can put up, that's something that, Mr. Sims, maybe you could speak to it since that's your lead.
Sure, thanks, Chair. I think that we'll be transitioning slowly, like the enforceable part of school zone is where it's visible on the specific frontage that you can sign for school days only 30 kilometers an hour. But the surrounding area, I always think of Uplands Drive, because you can't see the school from Uplands as an example. But so we can't enforce the 30 kilometer an hour, but we can leave up the school area sign so that the school signs will stay up, so that people are drivers are at least aware of it.
Just remove the white and put it to yellow, because yellow is not enforceable, but it was.
Is this a committee where we might also discuss things like pedestrian safety and sidewalks?
Yes, 100%. I don't want, just so you know, and I made this very clear to our council when we were in Chisholm, I don't want to focus just on homelessness and drug addiction. There's a much bigger safety issue in the community. There's people that aren't feeling safe because of our court systems, like the break and enters that happen. Graffiti, we get a lot of graffiti in town, and people don't like it. Brings your values down. it makes people think that there is crime, and so there's things like that, like we used to have graffiti task force, which I chaired back in, I think it was 2010 maybe. And Wally we had quite a few, and we did a lot of work around that, then it got, not under this council, but under the previous council, it got disbanded, but it did a lot of good work. So this isn't only about dealing with the drug and social issues, it's also about pedestrian safety, fire safety. I mean, we've lost some young children in fires because, you know, is there stuff that we can be doing to support our fire department, whether it be key messaging? We used to have, and I think we still do, a free smoke alarm thing that goes out, carbon monoxide. It's not just about social disorder. However, social disorder is what we probably get 80% of that, and then our next would be traffic issues, like speeding on Extension, speeding on West Lake, that kind of stuff. We're kind of limited on some of that stuff, but we can look at when our public works comes forward, our traffic or engineering department says we're looking at these possibilities. That might be something we might want to look at. Like I know our Tilly and I are both in the accessibility. Any city plan that's going to impact comes to that committee. So they will look at it and say, well, we're concerned that you're doing this type of surface because it's hard for people with walkers. One example I'll give you that we never thought of was we have somebody that's blind on our committee, says it's great to prune the trees back this direction. He said, but I'm 6'2" and my cane doesn't go down low and I'm hitting trees. So Richard immediately, now they're pruning their trees to 7-foot height. So little things like that make a big difference. It's not just solely focusing on that, but I'm going to be quite honest. I anticipate probably 70% of our time will be on social disorder because that's what we hear the most about. Scott?
Can I focus on social disorder one more time? I was just wondering if there's any information on pathways into homelessness in Nanaimo, like socio-demographics on the groups that get involved and where they're coming from, or how people are getting at-risk groups to
I believe
homelessness.
Ms. Wood's done a lot of work on
I bet
that.
that's been done already. It'd
Yeah.
just be great to
Yeah,
have
and
that.
that would be stuff that we could bring forward. I think the other thing that maybe we can do, Ms. Curry, is once the four of us can sit down, and Mr. LeBage, the 5 of us, and look at where our linkages are and send all those linkages out to the committee so you can find, here's what we're doing on this here. So you can, what you're interested in, you can just click on the links and you'll find it instead of trying to search the city website.
Yeah.
Because there is, I came from the North Shore in 2010, and I can tell you when I came back here, the work that the Safer Nanaimo did was amazing, how much work has been done, and unfortunately it didn't fall within legal guidelines when it changed. But there's been a lot of good programs that come out of this community, and I think we're ahead in a lot of areas. So.
I just hope to focus on the origins of some of this and not be all retroactive. I know those programs are amazing too, but
But sometimes we have all this stuff and we don't deal with it. Like we have so many great reports that sit on there that never get acted upon, right? So that's something we have to be cognizant of too when we are making recommendations. We'll go to council if it requires a monetary budget, then we have to find where does it come from, because this committee does not come with a monetary budget, so.
You won't be redistributing
Yeah,
glass
but
in
so
Canada?
those are, like, I don't want people to have false expectations that, we're gonna recommend another warming center. Well, we only have a certain amount of dollars, so we have to be really careful. And there's a lot of people in this community that don't agree with us funding them too, right? So it's a mixed bag, because I think it's, again, another provincial download, so.
I just wanted to finish.
Oh, that's okay. No, go ahead.
I just wanted to finish my thought on the sidewalks because I know that there's, I've thought of it because in the south end there are school zones that only have sidewalks up inside the school, and there's like a lot of traffic that's happening on foot that don't even have sidewalks. So that's just something to consider.
There is a plan on that. We have a sidewalk thing where we know where all of our sidewalks are and where they're not there, and every year as a council, we vote on where they go in based on recommendations, so that is all being done again. We have new software that we got, I think, 3 or 4 years ago. It's called, I can't remember, but I shouldn't talk about, but some conspiracy theorists figure that we're collecting all their data and then when they can count and blah, blah, blah. It's not that at all. It's to do exactly what you said. How many kids or pedestrians are there? How many are on cycles? How many cars are running? It's got nothing to do with identification. It's gathering information so we know this particular intersection saw 5,000 cars, and we were actually going to put our dollars there where we only saw 1,000 cars. So it's very good technology, and we can look at that at a later date, because I do believe we may end up getting an extension road or Lost Lake Road, which has got some serious issues. But I just want Mr. Sims to tell you, and I'll tell you, what used to cost $300 to put in for a sidewalk is now between $2,000 and $3,000 for just a little, 3 or 4 feet, Mr. Sims?
Yeah, that's right.
So it's cost prohibitive. And when people talk about the north end, a lot of those sidewalks were put in by the developers as part of the contributions they must make, so. It's stuff that, when you have this kind of stuff, if you have a question like that, if you're not sure, please email Ms. Curry or myself and we'll make sure it goes to the appropriate. I would say to email, myself, Hillary, and Ms. Curry, and we'll make sure it goes out to the proper area. So if the three of us can get emails, then you will always get a response and it's not invoking. And if we feel that it's important that it goes out to all the committee, then Ms. Curry can make the decisions if contrary to any of our laws or bylaws. Is that okay, Ms. Curry? Now you had your hand up?
I was just going to say, to the comment earlier, the document that I was saying to bring and probably have Christine would present on. I'm not sure if you remember, she presented to council or GPC on the upstream, midstream,
Yes,
and lower stream initiatives that we've done and or are happening. So that's what we're trying to compile for everything the city's done. So you have that document that says, here's what we've done and here's where we're at, but definitely bring it here for you, but it covers those exact things.
Yeah, there's been a lot of good work done in our social planning, like
I guess-
under Ms. Popel before.
Yeah, maybe I wasn't clear. I was just hoping to get, like you said, I would like to get the perspectives of homeless people, and so that's sort of important. And so some qualitative research that's been done in Nanaimo on how how some of the issues transpired, I guess.
So there is going to be the point in time, count as Councilor Eastmer said, that so far it hasn't come out, it's come to us in draft, but they're re-looking at it and then that will be published, which assesses some of that stuff. Then NAPSA just did, the Nanaimo Area Public Safety just did a report that you'll see that you get to that has got a lot of quantitative and qualitative materials that was put together in a column. So there's a lot of information there. It's just, again, we don't want to get information overload, so it's important to hear where you're looking at first, and I think the first part for us is seeing the plans that we have in place, and then where do we go from there? How do we action them? You may see some holes in them that we don't see based on your different perspectives from the community and where you're at. The other thing, and I don't know if everybody agrees with this or not, but for me, I think we need to start pushing to get our judicial system back on track because we don't have enough judges, so murderers, et cetera, rapists are going free. So I see this as part of an advocacy role too, and I would love to see us advocate for restorative justice to get a lot more funding than it does so people don't end up in the court system.
Sorry, can I say something?
Of course, Dwight.
I don't know how to raise my hand. I don't know if I'm supposed to do it or
I'll
jump.
just push your hand, but if you put it up like that,
That's
between
what
the ladies over there, I'll try and catch it.
Yeah, that's cool. Just, and I'm sorry I missed the introductions, folks. I'll catch up with all you guys in April. But just to the point that was just being made about inviting people to come in and speak, I just want to make sure we're conscious of. I don't want to be accused of virtue signaling. I don't want to invite. If you've talked to one homeless person, you've talked to one homeless person, right? So I want to make sure that we don't have somebody in, listen to them tell us something, and then kind of go, okay, we know everything about homelessness. So I just want to be very cautious of that as well. There's not an elected representative of the 1,000 homeless people necessarily that speaks for everybody. So I just want to be careful of that sort of stuff.
No, that's good. We do have people here that are working with different groups that are working with our homeless. Like I know Kim is working with Risebridge. I believe Destiny, you work with quite a few.
Yes.
Yeah. So we do have that perspective here, but I think sometimes it's just good if we can hear, not forget about them, right? Because so many people think the homeless are bad people, and a lot of them are there for many, many different reasons. And I think we need to focus on that and recognize that a lot of them are victims just as much as tax-paying citizens like to say that they're the only victims. Well, no, a lot of our vulnerable homeless population see a lot of horrific stuff and go through a lot of horrific stuff. So, but that's a good point. Because you're right, we hear that from our mayor quite often. Oh, another virtue signal. So, if we have nothing further, we could actually leave earlier if there's other conversations or anybody has any points they want to bring up. Councilor Hemmons, is there anything you would like to say?
So, just thank you.
Anything from staff? Anybody's got anything they would like to say or talk about?
Nice to meet everybody.
That's it, Fire Chief. Good job. Jeremy, you were sitting down there quiet.
No, just, yeah, really interested to hear that dialogue and already working with these.
Jeremy's in our planning.
So we're gonna adjourn shortly here, and then we're gonna have 2 months before the next meeting. So what can we do in the meantime.
I think the important thing is if we get out the requested information to you, like all of our reports, because there's a lot of reports that you can look at. If something comes up meanwhile, we maybe have the ability to schedule another one, but I think the first part is just getting up to speed with everything the city's got on the go, what they're doing, how they're getting there. Maybe even including some of the relevant BC legislation that's constantly changing, but like the Heart and Hearth program, which is where now they're putting their money in versus supportive housing. It's what we're, like, different things like that, just to understand that.
So will there be like a package of materials that's gonna be prepared by?
Like, I don't know how you feel, but I think everybody's pretty tech savvy in here. So if we send an email with the links and you could just click on the link, I think that would, do you think that would be better, Ms. Curry, than sending out paper? If we just send it all so that you all have it?
Yeah, I just
and
like,
then
yeah.
Maybe what else we could do, just so you know, I just thought of this now. We'll send you out what the RCMP strategic priorities are, so you understand what their priorities are for the city. Because that, you know, like Mr. LeBear said, we can't direct them, but we can certainly influence them. Scott?
I like yours, Anko. Like, I think it would be great to come with a plan too, of some sort, maybe like our top 10, each our top 10 list or something like that.
How about we do that for the
As
next
well.
meeting, that you guys come with what your top 5 to 10
Right, yeah.
priorities are?
Your
And then
list.
we can use that to start building towards a work plan.
Because we will have to focus,
Yep.
obviously, on some things.
Also, to further for the RCMP, a little bit more information on their liaison program, like I volunteer with their Happy Feet 9/11 program, and Josh, who's a great guy, and just a little bit more
So the mental
on
health
the
one?
mental health part of it.
Mental health liaison. Okay. And the school liaison were the two so far that stick out to me, that are the most important. Because I think that would cover off also, because the school liaison program deals with the guns and gang program as well, that Ms. Woods would.
No, I was just gonna mention, to Ms. Milton's, there's, Mr. LeBerge and I already talked about some other stuff, putting together a list of a lot of those links of different programs, studies, plans, policies.
Yeah.
Mr. LeBerge went through some of those, and you may not be interested in any of them, but at least you have a list that you can link to and say, okay, there's a mile there. Yeah.
It's, yeah, and I mean, it's a question of alignment, right? But like everybody, like if there's like a baseline of information that everybody has access to, that is, you know, the expectation is that you read it, at least.
No, I'm pretty well
No,
assuming
no, I
everybody
know.
here's got that under control.
But
Or
like,
they wouldn't be here.
yeah, but like just so that there's that kind of shared understanding of where we're starting from.
Yeah, and I think then that'll give us a basis for the next meeting to decide, okay, you know what, we've read all these, and then you can go around and say, okay, like I like this plan, or I like that plan, we can look at, okay, here's 3 plans, what can we do to help move them forward, or something like that. I don't know what people think about that, but, Doris?
Well, and you know, even though the committee members, like, we can't meet all together in between the meetings, like, you can certainly reach out to Cheryl and myself, and like, certainly I'm available, like, if you wanna go for coffee and, or have a little, like, work party together and just, like, take the time to go over the reports, and if you have questions that I can go back to staff with, like, I'm more than happy to take the time to do that with you, like, anytime, so, yeah, just feel free to keep in touch in between meetings
And it's really important that if you do email us, and Ms. Bird's included, then she'll know, oh, I can share this with the whole group. You know, this is, especially if we might see, like, I'm hearing this from Scott, I'm hearing this from Kim, I'm hearing this from Doug. Okay, 3 different groups, this must be important, so we can get the information out, or, you know, because it's important that we know where you're at.
So there's an action for each of the committee members before the next meeting to receive the package of materials, to read and digest it, formulate your priorities of what you,
For questions,
or questions, and come prepared to the next meeting to advance those topics.
Yeah, exactly.
and we'll build it into the work plan.
Yeah, because I think that's a good way for us to start to capture what our work plan will be. You know, I gotta be quite honest, it's gonna take us at least 3 meetings to get our feet up and running and stuff, because we could even be faster, but it's gonna take a few so we understand where we're going, what we're doing. Because we've gotta have a mission, right? Like, we need an end goal, like if let's say we picked cooling center, for example. What's our end goal? Like, is it so we ensure that everybody in the community knows where they're at, how they can access it? Like, a lot of that's being done now, but when we talk to people in the community, they'll find out, well, I didn't know where to find that information. So.
Yeah, and to that point, I mean, like, it's already mid-February, and, you know, there's next meeting, which will be April, and by the time the meeting after that comes around, there's a need for cooling center by
Yeah, but I mean, let's just, but we can also add meetings, if we figure that it's going and you guys are willing to come in and we've got the staff capabilities, Chief Doyle and then Ms. Green.
Just on that particular topic, we can do a presentation on it the next meeting, but that's already planned for well ahead. So in terms of cooling and warming, although, the warming, I heard a comment that it's, felt like there was a need to do more in the warming, but the cooling and warming, there's pre-planning that happens ahead, and we can bring a presentation on that, so.
And just, so you know, today in finance and audit, we approved another $500,000 to go towards a warming center or cooling center, whichever. And it's actually technically, again, as the mayor says, mandate, it's not our mandate to do it, but we have been because somebody has to, right? But Ms. Green?
I kind of was suspecting that we were gonna be talking about more meetings with Colin's comment, but I just want to point out, like, it's not because we only want to see you every 2 months. It's, for example, in March, we have 4 weeks and we have 11 meetings in those 4 weeks. So it's like all of these little colored squares, I don't know if you guys can see it, they're all meetings of one way, shape, or form, so we do try to work these meetings in, but when we can, or need to have extra, we will try to do so where we can, but we do have, last year we had 108 meetings.
Yeah, we have competing schedules. Jennifer?
Is there any role that the committee can play in pushing back against that downloading component?
Yeah.
100%.
Yes, yeah.
Like,
I was just gonna say.
what can we do?
We can make recommendations to council on this is what we're seeing and this is what we would like to see and how do we go about doing it. I think we could actually do a piece maybe on how does this committee do advocacy work?
That would be helpful.
Yeah, like, I mean, I'll tell you, having been on council for 8 years almost, we're doing constant, I mean, there is nobody more outspoken than Mayor Pro on this issue. Nobody. He's constantly being interviewed, he's constantly on the news, he's constantly pushing for treatment, constantly. And
Well, part of the reason why I wanted to be on the committee was so that I could support that.
yeah,
And I think that provincially, Nanaimo has, in a lot of ways, been one of the areas that people keep their eyes on. So, I mean, if we can have a voice in that regard,
Yeah.
I think we should really.
well, I think it's important too because committees are representative of the community, it's not council, which I think makes a difference when the government is looking at it. These are committee recommendations, it's not a council thing. I think they listen more because you represent a broad group of people, they might listen more to community push than, or committee push than community. And there's also ways where we can mobilize, like use the neighborhood associations. Well, you know what? Recommendation to you guys is, start getting this out in the press. Like, there's things that we can look at doing, but I think we could do a partial session on advocacy.
And maybe make it a goal to, if we have a cohesive idea around what we want to advocate for, we could look at potentially doing a statement from the Public Safety Committee, which is another way of getting that reach, and I think could potentially be more effective because it's not an elected body, you're representing the community, as Councillor Armstrong said.
Yeah, like I would have to do speaking or Hillary, which I was chairing, and say our committee has recommended that yes, the city fund this, but we are pushing for more dollars from the province who's actually responsible for this. We are pushing to get more treatment beds in our community because we're seeing this many deaths a year.
Because the danger is always, somebody's got to step in and do it because it's clear that there's a community need. And as soon as the municipality starts doing it, then the province is like, okay, great.
Well, I've been saying that for years. As soon as we start putting on the Band-Aids, they'll never fix the wound. They won't. I saw that in the RCMP year after year, and I sat on so many committees as Mr. LaBerge has. And until the community really pushes back and it becomes an election issue, good luck. I hate to say it, but I mean, and they've just, the situation table is something that I sat on back in 1990. They're just regurgitating stuff that used to happen in the 80s. We used to meet all the time on problem issues, but now they just got a new name for it. It's nothing new.
And that's one of the reasons why it's so important that the public understand, things about the community charter, understand where the limits of the authority are. Because that is something that there is a lot of confusion about. Most people don't take civics in school, right?
Well, it's amazing how many people don't know that we don't have the power to do this.
Yeah,
So if you have ideas for how to help us get that message through, I'd also be super open to hearing that, because we're working on a communications plan, and it's like, it's all there, but
Yeah.
you can't
Well, it's
lead
getting,
people
yeah,
to it, right?
I think it's also about, it's also about getting kind of the influencers and people around town to put it out there, you know, like, that's one of the things that the Navajo City Association tries to do, right, is to run with those ideas and try to get them talked about in a not so formal setting, but yeah.
I think
Let's
one
talk
thing that
more.
we need to really push is for people to know what's going on, is to sign up for the Get Involved in Nanaimo page. When people tell me they don't know what's going on, I say, well, what more can we do? We've advertised in papers, we've got social media, we've got Instagram, blah, blah, blah. Like the prime example is AAP, it's first I've heard of it. Well, it's been out in the community for 4 years that this is what we want to do. So if you register for the Get Involved, then you can pick and choose, what do I want to read? Like you'll read public safety minutes, everything's there, right?
Mine and Nanaimo this week.
What is it?
Mine and Nanaimo this week.
Oh, because they've been pushing Get Involved in Nanaimo on one of the websites.
That's good as well, but mine and Nanaimo this week is.
Never heard of it, it's first I've heard of
It's
it.
our weekly.
Oh, see, there you go.
You get it, because we sign the council up to it, so it comes in your email once a week.
Oh, I'm
It's
just
not
doing
look
that,
at it.
sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I know what's going on because I go to all the
Yes,
meetings.
you know what's going on,
But it's
mine
just a
and
way, like, I'll tell you, it's just amazing to hear how many people don't really care till it affects them.
I know,
Boy, oh
yes.
boy. Dave?
I wonder, through the chair, if the committee could give staff some direction on, we're gonna do a big information dump, but when we start the meeting in 2 months, which subject experts can I bring and who would you like to hear from and what on first? Could we speak to any consensus on that?
I'll just throw whatever, go ahead.
Well, we have the one motion, Dave, on the neighborhood, Nanaimo Neighborhood Network. So that for sure is gonna be on the next agenda.
I think Christy for sure.
I think Chrissy Wood should be next
I've
up
made
to
some
talk
notes on
about.
which ones.
Yeah, because she's gonna hit what I think everybody I heard for what their purpose was being on there, she's gonna hit about what programs we're doing. She's got the understanding of the youth and gangs. She knows what's happening with the cooling centers, the warming centers. So even if she doesn't touch on that, if a question comes up, she'll be able to answer it. So for me, she would be one of our key people. And the other thing I don't know if people know what the community safety officers are here. They all do? Okay.
One question I had is we spoke a little bit about getting an update on housing and where we are with all the supportive housing.
That's Chrissy Wood.
And that's Chrissy Wood as well, okay, great.
Yeah. She's a very busy woman. Yeah. Yeah, so,
Sorry,
Sorry,
was
go ahead.
there a desire to have the fire chief speak about?
well, we'll let them look at where that's at, because
There's a big
I'll
list
tell you,
here, I've got some.
once we get rolling, you'll find that 2 hours goes really fast. The first meeting's always slower, but we usually run out of time. Although I do chair pretty fast. I'm pretty on the ball.
Well, we got a lot to accomplish.
Yeah.
We have to, this
Well, we need to
committee has to do-
streamline, like, I don't
yeah.
wanna start us going off on tangents, like if we're working on sometimes the tangent could be good, but sometimes they're not. So, I'm not seeing any further stuff before we call for adjournment?
Can I ask one last thing?
Of course.
Is there any sort of triage court going on in Nanaimo, like drug court or?
No.
Nothing?
The only drug
Like
court that I'm
Vancouver
aware
has quite a,
I don't even know if
Set up for-
Vancouver's drug court is working that well
the
right
community
now.
court is still, I think.
New West had one for a while.
I'm not sure what COVID did to everything.
Yeah, a lot of
Vancouver
it
had a
shut.
lot of services.
Yeah.
They had mental health
Yeah.
support workers, which were really
Yeah.
vital. But
And-
that stuff sort of disappeared in
Yeah,
Nanaimo.
because
There
Kamloops
is a
was,
domestic violence court,
Yeah.
but that's about it.
Right.
and I know Kamloops was looking at a mental health court, it was gonna be the first one in the province, and then that got sidelined by COVID. Our problem is there's no judges right now.
Right.
There's so many vacancies, and I was just saying earlier before you guys came in, that I think it was one of the Supreme Court, I don't know if it was a judge or it was local level, has said to Trudeau, you need to fill these vacancies, there's something like 90 in our province
Oh,
alone.
yeah, once again.
So, like, I mean, and there's a decision called the Jordan decision, which means you must get to trial in 18 months, Judge, I think, is it 18
It
months?
varies.
Yeah, usually, but they look at 18 months.
Whether it's indictable or
Yeah,
something.
and some of these people, like, there's a lot of guys, rapists
Yeah.
walking, murders walking, you know.
So, I mean, this is gonna show my ignorance, but what is the bottleneck for being able to appoint judges?
They just haven't done it.
That's it?
Yeah.
They just haven't gotten around to it?
That's
You know,
my understanding.
typically, there's a pool of
Yeah,
pre-approved
yeah, it's all
people that
pre-approved.
could be appointed.
Yeah.
And then for, I don't know whether it's budget or what, but there's two separate things. There's federal judges, which Trudeau would be responsible for, but the province appoints provincial court
And
judges.
Supreme Court.
Provincial court judges do 90% of the criminal
And,
stuff.
and the appeal court too.
And so there is this pipeline of people that are qualified candidates that are waiting in the wings, just nobody's being appointed.
That's what I understand with respect to the federal system. I don't know so much for the
I'm-
provincial
I
system.
can speak to provincial because I brought that up with Minister Farnworth.
Yeah.
And they're working to fix the vacancies. And the other thing I give them credit for is they're working to very much fill the vacancies in the Crown Councils.
Cause that's, yeah.
They are, like, I mean, I'm not an NDP person, but I'm gonna give them a lot of credit because they are looking to change a lot of this stuff. Like,
It's just, yeah,
they're
like,
listening.
cause those kinds of insights, like those, like, when the public gets outraged at something and it gets into the press, then all of a sudden people find a way of moving faster. So like,
Yeah, I do think though, a lot of it, and again, in fairness to them, I think a lot of this stuff was hampered by COVID, because COVID took over everything, like
Yeah.
even for us, like a lot of stuff got put on hold, police, a lot of stuff got put on hold. And we forget, we're just starting to really come out of it now, and there was a lot of retirements in, you know, and I do think they really are trying to work on this, I believe that, and you know me, I wouldn't say it if I didn't believe it.
Yeah.
Especially because it's. The judge situation has been like escalating since well before COVID.
Yeah, but that's made it worse though, I think. Because all the money went into there, like look at the billions that the government spent on COVID, but they wouldn't spend on other stuff. Like the mayor said, boy, we can find billions to look after COVID, but we can't find millions to help us with treatment centers, you know? It's where's the political will? And that's why I said, there's gonna be election issues. There's election coming up in a year. Like, you know, maybe that's something we need to focus on, like we can come up at our next meeting and decide which is the most important thing for us to put out during election year and put it to the three parties, the four parties, however we're going to run, like to the candidates. I have no problem putting them to candidates if they do an all candidates meeting. What are you going to do to address our homeless situation in this community or treatments, whatever?
and the committee can make that ask of the candidates?
Well, what we can do is we can make a recommendation to council that we push and advocate further for this. But there's nothing, so long as you don't go identify yourself as one of the nominal committee, there's nothing stopping you from going to ask that question.
Right.
Like, I don't identify myself as a councillor, I'm going as a citizen, right?
Right.
Here's my question to you, what are you gonna do?
Oh, no, I was just, Counselor, the chair covered it, but I was basically gonna say, like, as a recommendation to council, council couldn't like, align with a party or, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that, just like that all candidates question, like who would organize that kind of?
Most chamber usually does that, and then every one of these committee members has every right to go as a private citizen to say, you know what? This is what I'm hearing in my community, what are you gonna do to fix it? Like, I'm tired of the bashing, like, sorry, no offense, but when I went to Falcons thing, I was tired of hearing the EV bashing and all that. Well, you didn't tell me what you're gonna do to fix it. Like, I wanna know from these, I'm tired of politicians bashing each other. We're all trying our best, but tell me, how are you gonna make it better?
I don't have, you know, what offense would I have?
No, just because you're a moderator, that's all, I didn't mean that. Like, I just believe in giving, like, if somebody does something well, we should be telling them, yes, they're not my party, but they've done a really good job at moving this forward, you know, like, but I can do better by doing this, you know, I'm just tired of it.
I guess I asked about community court though, because it brings in restorative justice,
It's a
and it brings
great
in
thing.
site nurses, and it brings in housing, and it brings in everyone.
They're
And
fabulous.
it's a good conduit where you get people going to the right needs.
So
in
we
the
are
community.
getting
It's pretty excellent.
an Aboriginal Justice Hub here.
Okay.
That was
good.
announced,
Yeah.
that will be coming, and I've been working with the lady in the deputy minister in, what do you call it, Victoria on that, because my background, I did a lot of work with Indigenous peoples, so I know a lot about some of the issues and who to put them in touch with.
Yeah, like
And that's gonna be a very holistic approach, which is exactly what we need.
like rehabilitation doesn't work for everyone, punishment doesn't work for
No, it
everyone.
doesn't.
I mean, you need meaningful sanctions that are useful
Yeah.
for the people.
That's why I'm a huge believer in restorative justice.
Yeah.
Huge believer in it, because it gets everybody that's involved in the crime together working.
So, yeah, if the community really cares, they can get involved.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
I have a question,
Oh,
just to
sorry.
check if there's any questions.
Oh, sorry, sir, do you have any questions you'd like to ask?
Me?
Yeah,
No.
Okay. I forgot about question period because I don't see it on, oh, there it is.
Great to be the fly on the wall.
Yeah, thank you, and feel free anytime if you do have questions to let us know, or if you have issues that you're seeing, we're open to that. Thank you. So call for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Eastmer, seconded by Scott, all those in favor? Motion carries. And